Jamie was a great baby. He's just been the greatest kid ever. I can't say enough good things about him.
He was always very happy and joyful, enjoyed everything that he did, had a great attention span for learning things, and he was really easy. He was an easy kid. Everybody in my family loves to swim. We all love the water, so we had a swimming pool. Jamie would never go down past the stairs of the pool, and even if I would pick him up and take him out into the water, he would completely panic, practically choke you, begging you to take him back into the shallow part of the pool. He was terrified of the deep end of the pool.
When Jamie was about 3 or 4, he was young because he was trying to learn to ride a small bike. I was outside with him trying to encourage him to ride the bike, and he started talking about seeing our mom riding a bike down the same street. And he said, "Mom rode her blue bike. I saw her ride her blue bike." And I said, "Where did you see her? Like in a picture, like photograph?" And he said, "No, I looked down and saw her through the window."
I did have a little blue 3-wheeler that I used to ride, and that would have been, for me, around the age of 5, and he knew about it. I had never mentioned it to him before. I don't even think I have a picture of it. And he said that he used to watch me. And I said, "How did you watch me?" And then he was kind of indignant about it. He goes, "Well, there's windows in heaven, Mama." When Jamie was around 4 or 5 years old, he started having night terrors. He would be asleep, he'd go to bed, and you'd hear him, thrashing around a little bit, and then all of a sudden he'd come running. He didn't look at you, he didn't look at his surroundings, but he always seemed panicked, like he was looking for a way to get out. Jamie was around 4 years old, and we had gone out one night and left him with a babysitter. And when we came home, we found out that Jamie had watched the last half of the Titanic movie, which is not something we were happy about. And the next day, he started drawing and painting picture after picture of the Titanic. Within the first 2 weeks, he probably had painted 50 pictures. One, he had over 100 windows drawn in. One pencil drawing, he has all the levels of the ship. Like if you cut the ship in half and you can see all the different rooms and everything. He knew the ship. He knew it by heart. You can't learn that by watching the movie. The movie actually was more about a love story, and Jamie was completely distraught over the fact that the people in the boiler room died first. Like it was his fault that they were trapped.
I figured he'd seen the movie, which was a popular movie at the time, and maybe that's why he was into it. But the form of obsession that he had with it, I knew wasn't normal. So I was a little creeped out.
He started talking about the accident itself and how it shouldn't have happened, that there were mistakes, there were corners cut, and the men in the boiler rooms should not have been trapped. And he would cry about it.
He had so much knowledge about the ship and such an interest in it that we thought there has to be some other deeper connection.
When he was 5 years old, he was telling me some of the mistakes that they made in building the ship. Using iron instead of steel was wrong. He was 5. He was telling me these things. I had always grew up with the belief of reincarnation. So it was a very common thing for me to think that, yes, there might be more than just this one life. So after Jamie was having memories of the Titanic for almost 2 years, as we studied the Titanic and the history of it, we had finally come to the conclusion about who he was. We didn't match him up with anybody right away, but as we studied the Titanic and the history of it, Jamie could have been one of the designers. His name was Thomas Andrews.
We felt like Jamie had a connection with the ship's architect, Thomas Andrews, and he was very interested in the whole shipbuilding side of it.
Thomas Andrews designed several ships for the White Star Line, and it was his habit of going on all the maiden voyages of the ships that he helped design and build. And on the Titanic, the night that they were sinking, he chose not to get on a lifeboat and went down with the ship. Andrews was the chief designer. He was the one that was fighting with J.P. Morgan, who financed the Titanic. He fought with him over the fact that they didn't have enough lifeboats. The fact that they were trying to get the ship done by a certain date, so they weren't constructing it as carefully as they could have been. Thomas Andrews wanted to use steel, and they used iron, and then of course, once the iron, which wasn't as strong as steel, got in the sub-zero temperatures of the water, it became brittle. So that was another reason why the ship literally broke apart. When you read about Thomas Andrews, it fit with what Jamie said. They took the Titanic exhibit across the country, and as soon as my daughter Teal heard that they were coming to Chicago, we bought tickets immediately and figured Jamie has to go see it.
The things that he was experiencing were becoming more and more intense, and the obsession had been going on for so long that I thought maybe if he is exposed to things that were actually there, maybe something will click in him and it won't be such an obsession anymore. Maybe if he gets closer to it, it'll make things better.
When we went to the Titanic exhibit in Chicago, I was hoping that there would be something that would turn the corner for Jamie. But it was after the exhibit that Jamie had the dream that I call the death dream. He had been suffering from night terrors for a couple of years. Well, one night, this was after we had seen the exhibit, I was home alone with Jamie. He was in bed asleep, and I was watching television, and all of a sudden I heard a bang on his bedroom wall. It was rhythmic. It was bang, 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 bang. And I jumped up and I ran down the hallway and I flung the door open, and Jamie was up on all fours on his bed. He was staring at the floor and he was almost convulsing. He was shaking so hard. I didn't know what to do. I mean, I was terrified, and I didn't know if I should like shake him out of it. And before I could even do anything, he screamed, and I cannot tell you the terror in his voice. He screamed, "She's going down." It didn't sound like a little boy. It sounded like a man. And I started to cry. But after that night, it was a day or two, he would talk about the Titanic. And then it was a week, he'd talk about the Titanic. Then it was 2 weeks. And slowly, he just stopped talking about it. And I really felt that through all of that brought him to the memory of actually the ship sinking. And once he experienced that, it was over. It was over.
My name is Jamie, and I'm 19 years old. I would like to think that I was probably Thomas Andrews just because of the personality traits, and what he did is what I would have done. He gave himself up to let others get off the ship. And it was a horrible tragedy in history, and I don't know, I'm just very at peace with it, than knowing that I died on the Titanic. The Titanic will always be in connection to me some way, and it's always gonna be a part of me, but it's just about living this life now.
Out of the blue, he said he was on a ship and it sank and he died. We didn't really know what to think. We thought Seamus has an active imagination, he can be a storyteller. I wasn't sure if he was just watching too much TV.
The first time I heard from Seamus that he'd been a boy on a ship that sank and he lost his life that way, my first reaction was to be skeptical of that to some degree.
When I would tell different people about Seamus and his fascination, obsession with ships, a few people would say, well, maybe he was on the Titanic. And that got me thinking, well, maybe he was. I've always believed that it's possible for people to have past lives, and the thought of Seamus having a past life, it explains why other people say he's wise beyond his years. In his past life, Seamus said that he was 10 years old. He had a sister who was 14. He also had a green jacket suit on.
Seamus recalled the ship sinking as it rolls to its right side, the starboard side, and then sinks straight down into the water.
I'm Seamus and I'm 7 years old. I had a mom and a dad and a sister. The ship was red and black. The carpet was red and green. And then something hit it in the back. Like it had an explosion. And then it kind of sank and then tilted on its side. There were white boats made out of wood. Some people were on pieces of the ship, and some people were in the water, panicking and swimming.
His recollection is not dying in the shipwreck itself, but making it to a lifeboat, and he described white painted wooden lifeboats. Again, some pretty specific knowledge.
It was cold when we got on the lifeboats, and I wore 2 jackets. My green one, and then my dad gave me a black one. But I died on the lifeboat.
Hearing this from Seamus made me sick to my stomach. It's devastating to think that Seamus experienced a ship sinking and dying.
How can this little boy be telling me about these things as if it really happened? I can tell when Seamus is telling me a lie to keep from getting in trouble. But when he's serious about something, I can tell that too, and he believes what he's telling me. He's not making this up. Could my son Seamus really be experiencing a past life?
At first, I thought the Titanic was the ship I was on and died on. But then I thought because of the details and how it sank, it couldn't have been. That's when I knew I didn't die on the Titanic.
Seamus asked his dad what it meant to have an old soul, and then Seamus said he was afraid that how he died as an old soul in his past life is how he's gonna die in his current present life. It was almost like a hit to the gut, you know? That's pretty heavy for a 7-year-old to be worried about that. Aaron and I just told Seamus that you're not gonna die now how you died in a previous life, thinking that that would be okay, and he seemed to understand and get that until just the other day he started talking about it again. Obviously, our explanation wasn't sufficient. It's affecting us today. You know, Seamus is still not sleeping through the night. He's still coming into our bedroom, and now he's sleeping on a separate little couch that we have in our bedroom. And for him, it needs to be worked through because there's some anxiety and worry in his poor little heart and mind. It's so hard being the parents, and you're so connected to your kids. And you just want them to be happy and not worry about anything. I don't want them to relive that experience because it's so tragic. All those people dying, and we want to help Seamus. We're just not sure what to do. Today we're going to talk to Seamus about the different ships that have sunk. We have different options of different ships, and we're going to talk to him and see if we can't narrow down which ship he thinks that he was on.
Well, I'm hoping to help him find closure to what his previous existence was all about. And gosh, I'm excited about that, because I think that'll help him not have to worry about the kid he was then, and to let him know that now it's all about this life. Let's live this one. You know, you've been talking about boats and shipwrecks and those kind of things. Mom and I have looked up a bunch of different ships and boats and other stories, and I wanted to have you look at these and tell you these stories and see if any of these ring a bell to you. So this boat, this one is called the Callum, and it's from 1904. It was a ferry boat that sunk in a storm. Does that ring a bell at all? Does a ship this size or shape ring a bell at all?
Maybe a little bit bigger, that ship.
Bigger than this
bigger,
one.
okay.
Okay, look at this one. This is called the Princess Sophia, and this was in 1918. This one's larger. This thing got stuck in a storm.
Maybe like one size bigger than that.
When you were on the ship, did you see any land around you, or was it just open sea?
Open sea.
Open sea.
So Seamus, this one is a much more modern ship. This is the MS Estonia, which sank in 1994. And what's similar about this one to the things you've described is, see how the boat is listing to the starboard side?
Does that look familiar to you at all?
That wasn't the ship, because the front has kind of that more shape.
And then this is the lifeboat.
The lifeboats were wooden and they were white.
Wooden and white, okay.
So that's a definite no-no there, too. The RMS Lusitania. This was torpedoed by a German U-boat, a submarine. Here it is going down. Here's a white wooden lifeboat.
That one, I think, could have been it. It has 4 smokestacks, and it looks a familiar shape, and has the color white lifeboats.
After showing him options, we ruled out some of the ships, narrowing it down to the possibility of which one he was on.
There was one that he was really intrigued with, the RMS Lusitania. That's the boat that was sunk by a torpedo strike in 1915. So that matches a lot of the descriptions he's talked about.
We still have to get him to let go of his fear of dying that way in this life.
I think Seamus is onto something. I think it's up to us now to help him find closure. Let's go out on a big fishing boat and have a little moment of silence and throw out a wreath in tribute. It's just a way to close that chapter a little bit. That sounds like a good idea.
It's gonna be fun.
Aaron thought of a wreath and flowers because that's kind of a tradition with any funeral.
So we've come here today for a moment or two of quiet reflection,
Generally, there's always some kind of flowers.
honoring tribute to all those who've lost their lives at sea, including the previous life of young Seamus here. Anything you'd like to say?
He was more emotional than I thought he would be. I felt physically his emotion and his sense of loss as saying goodbye. I'm hoping for Seamus to feel safe because of the fact we had our ceremony and we came back as a family and everybody's safe. Oh, see the sea lines on the buoy?
Oh, jeez. Makes me feel better knowing that I won't die on a boat like I did in my past life.